Hey guys, Jeff here, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I thought I'd take you along for a walk and talk. I have mentioned on several occasions that there was a period of time in my life where I went completely and totally barefoot. By a period of time, we mean 3 years. And so I thought it'd just be nice to take a walk and thought it might be appropriate to take that walk barefoot. Well, I talk through the history there. So we're going to go all the way back to middle school, where I started running track and cross country. I was really into being active, out and about, moving. It was a good time. Now, once I got to high school, we added marching band and show choir to that mix, getting me even more active. And at this point, I was running 4 miles every day, and I was just the normal kid out doing exercise. However, my sophomore year of high school, I fell in show choir, banged my knee real bad, and I got a bone bruise. When we started going to the doctor, looking into things and finding out what was going on, found out the bone bruise was not my only issue. Turned out I had twisted hips, I had flat feet. They told me the muscles didn't fire in the right order in my quads, and that caused me other issues. But the long and the short of it is, after that injury, I started having knee pain. And not just a little knee pain. I went through different types of knee pain, different reasons. And we tried to do everything we could to handle it. I went through orthotics. I had 4 sets of orthotics that I not just had, but I actually wore them out. 2 of them were custom made for me. I had 2 knee braces that I also wore out, each of them. And I also I didn't wear out. I also went through 2 rounds of physical therapy. Even after all of this, eventually all the doctor had to say was, you've got some chronic issues. You're going to need to have your knees replaced between the age of 20 and 30. I mean, they wanted to wait till I was 20 or 30, because remember, I'm in high school at this point, about 16 or so. They said, we're going to wait till you're between 20 and 30, so you only have your knees replaced twice in your lifetime instead of 3 times. In the meantime, you need to take ibuprofen for the pain. And I was taking 600 milligrams of ibuprofen 4 times a day as a high schooler because of my chronic pain. I took a cane with me when I went to my homecoming and my high school prom dances, just because I was in this kind of pain and agony. Now, by the time I got to college, I was just used to this knee pain, I guess is the best way to put it. It was my normal. It was just the way life was. But while I was at college. While I was at college, I was poking around on the internet, as we often do, and I found something that suggested that going barefoot would allow the body to align itself the way it needs to, and could help with all sorts of knee, hip, back pain, and things like that. At this point, having gone through all of the different things I already had, I figured, what the hey, I've got nothing to lose. So that summer, while I was working at a camp out in the middle of the woods, I tried it. I started going barefoot, and I just jumped in whole hog. They required me to wear flip-flops in the cafeteria, but other than that, I was going barefoot everywhere. First week was kind of rough, figuring out what surfaces I could handle. In addition to the fact that I got tendonitis in my right big toe, which kind of ached, but only for a couple days, and then that went away and everything was good. And let me tell you, that camp was a great place to try this out, because you're out in the middle of the woods. It was a pine forest, and those pine needles, when they cover the forest floor, was oh so nice. Combine that with doing things like canoeing, and it was just an all-around great experience. So end of that summer, my sophomore year of college, when I went back, I am wholeheartedly completely 100% barefoot all the time. Now, technically, it was against the rules at my college, but my professors would say something to me about it, and they weren't mean about it. They just simply were like, hey, you're supposed to be wearing shoes in class. And I told them this story. I told them about the pain in high school, told them about trying this and the fact that it's actually working for me. I'm not having any knee pain anymore. They were impressed enough, and I think being respectful with it probably didn't hurt. So they didn't say anything. They said, all right, you go ahead and you do that. I was even in a traveling choir, and the choir director said, that's fine. Bring shoes along so you can put them on while we perform. But other than that, he was good with it too. The only exception was the cafeteria, which is, I'm sure, not a surprise. The guy in the cafeteria, he and I kind of went around. I was being very respectful, but he had a lot of reasons to say that I couldn't be barefoot in there. He said, well, what if my people that are carrying hot soup spill it on you? He said, if I'm wearing tennis shoes, that's going to hold the hot soup on even worse. I'm going to get burnt worse. Barefoot means that it can just come right off of me. He said, all right. But what about my guy who's cutting up the roast beef? What if he drops the knife and it lands on your foot? I said, if he drops the knife and it lands on my foot, flip-flops are not going to save me anymore. But you said flip-flops are okay. He started getting all flustered and he said, OSHA. OSHA's the reason you got to wear shoes in here. And I already knew the answer, but I said, sir, could you go and talk to your higher ups and check in? Because I'm fairly certain that OSHA only applies to employees. And I'm not employed by you. I'm just coming here in order to get my food. He said, all right. So a couple days later, he comes back and he said, you're right. OSHA doesn't apply here. You don't work here, but it's my cafeteria and I make the rules. So to come in here, you've got to put on shoes. And at that point, I told him, all right, if that's the rule, then that's the rule. And so I started carrying flip-flops in my backpack for the sole purpose of putting them on when I went to my meals in the cafeteria. But he really did exemplify most of the difficulty that I ran into. Was just people who didn't know better giving me these sorts of reasons and not even recognizing that the reasons didn't really hold water. So, 3 years of college, sophomore, junior, senior year, barefoot 24/7. So, I just went about my life. I went to stores, gas stations, restaurants. I went to McDonald's and Wendy's and Walmart, and I had no issues. You feel uncomfortable because you're afraid what people might think, but no one gave me any issues. It was great, and I felt myself doing better. I didn't have the knee pain anymore. I also found my flat feet developed an arch. I had better circulation. My feet were actually hot in the winter if I tried to put on socks or anything like that. It was fantastic, and I highly recommend, if you have the chance, even just in a nice spring day like we have right here, to get out and try a little hike. It's worth trying. There's a lot of experiences, but you do have to learn. I learned to walk differently. When you're wearing shoes, a lot of times you hit heel, toe, and when you're landing like that, you feel a lot of shock and you really feel it in your body. I learned, going barefoot, to land on the outside of my foot and roll my way in, and changing how I was walking like that meant that I didn't get as much impact and I had a lot less issues. And I think that that was the big thing for me. So where am I now? Well, I got married and my wife was going to be a professional, and she was honest with me. She said, Jeff, I'm not going to be able to do this if my husband is that weird guy going around barefoot. So I started wearing shoes. That said, there's modifications for me. I've taken all the insoles out of my shoes and tried to do everything I can to get it as close to being barefoot as possible. I've said it, I'm a teacher. I'm sure I wouldn't have my job now if I were still barefoot all the time. But that said, those 3 years reprogrammed me. Learning to walk differently means that I don't have knee pain anymore, or at least very rarely. If I have knee pain, it's usually because something has happened. Either I've overtaxed myself, or the weather's changing. Sometimes when the weather gets really cold, I still have some knee pain because the muscles get tight and I have problems with that. But yeah, I hardly ever go barefoot anymore, but it's nice to get out on a day like today, or if I need to run in the backyard, you know, why bother with shoes in the backyard? So that's my story. That's my 3 years of going barefoot and the way it changed my life drastically for the better. By the way, as of this video, I am 39 years old. I have not had my knees replaced. I don't think I'm gonna have to have my knees replaced. As I said, I hardly ever have the pain anymore. If I do have the pain, taking like 2 ibuprofen handles it. So a little bit of ibuprofen, a little bit of exercise therapy, reassess how I'm doing things, and that fixes my problems. So I guess my takeaway is know your body, try things even if they sound crazy, and allow yourself to be surprised. If you have any questions about my years of going barefoot, feel free to drop them down below. I'd love to have this conversation with people because people think it's crazy, but it's what I did and it worked for me. And yeah, I'd love to share with you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I will post a link down below to a group called the Society for Barefoot Living. They're where I learned a lot of my information when I started going barefoot. They gave me the confidence and the knowledge to do it. Give me a lot of answers to questions that people are gonna ask, like, aren't your feet so dirty? Well, maybe, but no more dirty than your shoes. Your shoes have all those crevices to hold the dirt. My feet are smooth. I go through a mud puddle, the mud comes right off if I rub it on some grass. Your shoes doesn't do that. That's honestly the one I hear the most. But that's what I got for you today. And with that, I'm gonna let you guys go and I'm just gonna keep enjoying my walk. Talk to y'all later.